today's episode, I'm going to go from this to this. Stick around to find out how I do that. Alright, welcome back to the channel. As we just saw in the intro there, today we're going to work on the wheels and the chain. So, not a lot, well, there's a lot of parts, not a lot of big parts. You got obviously the wheel rims, the hubs, they give the sides of the wheels in turned aluminum, and then the center of the wheel is in white metal, so a bit of a different approach there. But what it means, here's the instructions on how to, prepare all the parts and then lace the wheels, install the spokes. So it's, we're just building two wheels. So not a lot of output on this one, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of tedious, repetitious work, but really it's actually not that hard. I think the biggest part of this whole thing is going to be drilling all the holes in the hubs and the wheels for the spokes and the spoke nipples. So yeah, for that I'm going to have to figure out a way to index and drill, or index and hold the hubs to drill the spokes, or the holes for the spokes at the right angle, because they all come in at a oblique angle to the hub surface. It's not perpendicular, so I need to make a little fixture to hold these, and then to make it just easy to rotate the hub around to the next hole. So for that, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is just take a block of wood, drill a hole in the same diameter as this, then cut that in half so that it just creates a little saddle that I can stick in the vise, and then I can index it, because these holes just are going to be square but at an angle, on the relative to the surface of the hub. So, but square with the hub is good enough on these. On the rim, I'm probably going to do the opposite. I'm going to use a dowel that this will sit on, a little saddle, and I'll put a shoulder on it or something, I'm not quite sure yet, so that I can hold the rim in registration on it. But these ones not only are at an angle this way, so an angle that way, but they're also on an angle this way, so that the hole you drill at the top on the outside circumference has to obviously hit the dimple on the inside as well. So that one's going to be a little bit more tricky. Once you got the jig set up, it's just going to be a matter of rotating this and just drill each of your holes, right? So it's just all going to be in the setup. That'll be a bit tricky. So that's what I anticipate being the hard part of building the wheels. Actually lacing it, putting the spokes in and everything. Once you got all the holes drilled and got everything prepped, it's not that hard. The hardest part about it is setting your first spoke and making sure you've got the spoke hole on the outer rim lined up to the correct hole on the hub. Once you get the first one set, then it's just a repeating pattern around the wheel, and then the next layer of spokes, again, it just repeats. But again, setting the first spoke is the important one. Then after that, it's fairly straightforward. And they give you the nice diagram so you can kind of figure it out, right? You can always see that the next spoke crosses the third spoke there, and then the second spoke there, right? So it's going to cross two of the spokes, so that's how you know you've indexed it properly. And then you just repeat the pattern. And then the top layer, the spokes, same thing. It just keeps repeating. So they're actually pretty, once you get going on it, it's fairly straightforward. It's pretty easy. And these are big, so it's not even that fiddly. So those, I don't anticipate being a big problem in spoking or in lacing them. Drilling all the holes, that's going to be the challenge on this one. So, and then the other thing we're going to build or I'm going to build, is the chain. Again, fairly straightforward actually. They give you a bit of a sort of an index jig to build the chain on. They're all individual links out of photo etch, and the nice thing about these ones is there's no little connector left on the fret. It's etched all the way around, so they're free. There's just a piece of adhesive on the back that holds them all in there, so that's really nice. So there's nothing to trim. It's just a matter of peeling them off and putting them in place. The one semi-challenge around these is you gotta all the pins are white metal, so they're fairly soft. So what you have to do is peen them over, right? So use some smooth jaw pliers or something to crimp them is probably the way that I'll do it. So again, lots of repetitious work, but not really that difficult. It's just repetitive, and we'll make a chain at the end of it. So there's not gonna be a whole lot to show. I'll show you the setup, and I'll show you how this all works, but I'm not gonna show any of me building it. Same with the wheels. I'll show you the fixtures that I make to hold the hubs and the wheels, and I'll show you how that works, but I'm not gonna go through the whole process or film the whole process or anything. I might show you how to lace the wheels, how I do it, 1 or 2 spokes or whatever, and just talk about that a bit. But I don't think there'll be a whole lot in this episode. It's gonna be a bit of a shorter one as a result, but we'll see how it goes. If I run into problems or there's major challenges, then it might turn into a lot to talk about. So anyways, I'm gonna go and figure out my fixturing. And once I got that figured out, I will check back in. So we'll see in a bit. All right, so I got the rims drilled out, all the spoke holes in the rims drilled out. I was going to show you the jig I made to do this, but I didn't make one. I've been hemming and hawing on how I was going to do this to get a jig that would hold these, upright in my drill press, and then hold them at the right angle and the right index to get all the holes done. And it was just a lot of work to figure that out. And I'm looking at the part and I'm thinking that if I set it up that way, it'd actually be harder to get them to align, to be on the right angle. So I figured I'd give it a try drilling them out by hand from the inside out. Would give me the best bet, because that way I could get the drill bit on the inside, and then I could look at the outside and from the side and the front quite easily to get the angle I need. So I gave that a shot. First challenge there was, this is just my normal pin vise that I use. It's, I don't know what the minimum shank size it can take is, but it's big, as you can see. Plus it's too big to get in here at a shallow enough angle. So that was out, so that eliminated my shank drill bits, which are nice and sharp and easy to hand drill with. But then I have this little pin vise, which will go down to like a 0.2 or a 0.3. It'll close on up to about a 1 mil shank. So, but what it meant is I had to use, these are just numbered drill bits. I think these are from Excel. I started, this is number 67, which is about an 8 mil or 0.8 mil drill bit. The final size is going to be 1 mil. I still got to go and drill them out, enlarge the holes, but I just wanted to pilot them with this. So this worked really good. So what I figured out with this pin vise or something close to this, it if I rest the pin vise on the rim itself and line up the hole for the other angle, this would set the angle really well, and I could just drill through by hand. Well, so I drilled out about exactly 2 holes before that got really old, hand drilling. There's 40 holes per rim to drill, so 80 holes in total. So then I grabbed this sucker. So this is another pin vise, but this one will chuck in my drill. That's actually what these pin vices are for, to hold really tiny shank drill bits in a normal chuck, a bigger chuck. They don't have anything on the end like this. So anyways, that worked really well. This is slightly larger than this one, so the angle was a bit more, but it actually wasn't bad. So I was able, same thing, I could just basically lay the edge of the chuck on the rim, and that would set the angle out, and then just line up the oblique angle, or whatever it is, and just drill them through. So yeah, made pretty quick work of it. Didn't break any drill bits, so pretty pleased with that. Got them all drilled out, and I pretty much, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can zoom in. You know, I hit the center on the inside of the rim on pretty much all of them, and the center on the inside, which was the more important one. That's why I wanted to do it from the inside, because if I missed, I got the angle wrong, I'd rather have the spoke centered, you know, through its boss on the outside of the wheel where you can see it. And if I got the angle wrong, I can always hog the hole out on the inside so that I could fix the angle. So, in other words, if there's going to be any oversized part of the hole, I want it to be on the outside where you can't see it. So that's why I kind of decided to go on the inside method, and it ended up just being fairly easy. It took me, I don't know, 10 minutes to do both wheels and just work my way around. You know, like every fourth hole is the same. So there's 4 sets of different angles that you got to do. So you go around 10 of them. That's your first set of 4, and the opposite on the other side of the rim is the other set of 10. You flip it, and then it's another 2 sets of 10. So it's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. So anyways, that is, sorry, flopping around. That is those drilled out. Ended up being pretty much a non-event. They're extremely straightforward to do once I figured out a bit of a strategy and some tools. So I still got to drill at the hubs. Haven't done these yet. I will do these ones on the drill press. I've done similar. I've done spoked wheels for cars before, and I usually just mount it on a mandrel and then just rotate it, and then this is sitting offset so that you just turn this so that it lines up with the center line of the drill, and you can drill your hole that's intersecting at an angle and just hold it. So that's pretty easy. So I'll show you that setup though, because I will do that one with a bit of a setup. So anyways, just wanted to show you that little bit of progress, and let me go and get the hub set up, and I'll check back in once they're drilled, and I'll show you how I did that. Back in a bit. I've got all the holes drilled, everything more or less cleaned up. So I was going to show you some clever little jigs that I was going to make to do the hubs. As you recall, we had to drill all these holes in the hub. I had to drill all these holes in the hub. There's 40 of them per hub, and they're not perpendicular, right? They intersect the hub, depending on which one it is, at an angle about like that. So I was going to make a little jig to hold this all in my little drill press fixture, but end of the day, you know, there was no real need. I just drilled them by hand. You don't drill all the way through. They're just pockets for the spokes to sit in. So if they're not quite at the right angle, it's not that big of a deal. Especially if you don't drill them really deep, then the spoke can move a little bit. So end of the day, they don't need to be super accurate. You know, you'll be able to index the hub to the wheel and then set your angles on your spokes, no problem. I think the holes that are in the rim and the angle will be more the determining factor of, you know, the natural angle that the spoke sits at more than these, because these ones you just spot drill it in, So it more or less just holds it. It doesn't hold it at any real angle. You could have almost drilled these straight on perpendicular and done an oversized hole. I still did an oversized hole. They call for 0.3. I drilled 0.5. But then I measured a spoke, and the spokes are 0.4. So their call out was wrong to begin with, or 0.3 wouldn't have worked very well. It would have been really tight. So I drilled them a little bit oversized so that they'll have some movement. But I think even if you just did them perpendicular and went even maybe a 0.6 and left them oversized, then the spoke would, you could stick it in and move it around and set your angle, and it would be fine. Like other wheels I've built, that's the way I've done it, is you drill the holes perpendicular, a little bit oversized, and the spoke just sort of goes in, on an angle to the hole itself, but it's enough to hold it all together, and then you glue it on the outside, and it's more than strong. Like you got 40 spokes on a wheel, it'll hold itself together as long as the outside are all held. And the way I've done wheels like this in the past is usually when I'm setting the spokes and the spoke nipples, I'll just CA glue them just a drop on the outside here as I set each spoke. But then I'll come back and put epoxy on the outside to firmly hold everything. A couple of reasons there is the spokes are always too long, so you got to trim them off. And I find that if you don't epoxy them, oftentimes just because they're spring steel or they're like piano wire or something, or stainless wire, so it takes a bit of force to cut them, and usually that shocks and breaks the CA glue, so the epoxy holds much better. So anyways, that's what we've done. I've got everything all prepped now. These are natural metal, and ideally, like, this is all one piece on the real bike, obviously. So you can see the color mismatch. So I was going to polish them, but there's such a, there's so many different features here that it's hard to get a really good polish on them. So I might just paint them. Paint the insides and paint them a similar color to this, and they'll look fine, I think is what I'm going to do. So, but they should go together pretty easy. So that's what I'm going to go do now, is get some primer on this, get some paint on them, and then I'll check back in. I'll show you the little fixture that you use to spoke them, to hold everything in alignment. That's this guy here. So the wheel sits on there. There's an indexing mark for that. There isn't an indexing mark for the hub, so you kind of have to just put it in and start rotating until you set two spokes that cross each other, so you can set the angle and get the cross rate, and then you lock everything down and just throw the spokes in. So anyways, once I get that, the hub and the rim sorted out, get the finish on it, then I will see you back at the bench here and show you the jig and how all that works. And yeah. All right, we'll see you in a bit. All right, as you can see, I've got everything ready to go with the jig and to start lacing these wheels. So I think this is probably the most intimidating part for a lot of people of building wire spoke wheels, like model ones or real ones. Is it can be a little difficult to figure out where to start. They give you a pretty good indicator of how to do that here. Some of this isn't very clear though, so I'll just sort of walk through how this jig works and what you need to do to get it started. Once you get the pattern started, then it's really easy actually. So it's not terribly clear in the instructions. They kind of show you right here. There's a little circle with a point, but they're not really telling you what the point of this is. And what it is there's a mark on the jig, so that's where you align. Although it's not super critical on this setup, but there's a mark on the jig which you line up. There's 3 little dots here, plus it's the hole for the valve stem is right there. So that's where you align the outer rim into the jig. I've used a little bit of PVA glue to hold this in, I've used double-sided tape in the past, some really thin stuff, but it raises the rim up in the jig, and really it's meant to sit flat on its surface. So this I find works a little bit better. A little PVA, you can peel it off afterwards, and it's usually strong enough. Sometimes if I find that it's, not holding, then I'll just throw a couple clamps on, and you can move them to get access to the spokes. But anyway, so this jig, like I say, it's not super critical, but that's your alignment mark there. Now, why I say it's not critical on this jig is there's no alignment mark for the hub. So the hub is held at its correct height and obviously in the center. But there's nothing that aligns it, radially along this. So there's nothing of this jig that establishes a relationship between the wheel and the hub, which when you're doing real spoked wheels, you can find that relationship fairly easy just by the length of the spoke and the angle that they insert into the hub and the wheel. It becomes obvious. It's a bit of trial and error, but you find it. This one, it's kind of the same. We've already drilled all the holes in the hub at the more or less the right angle, so we can figure out, we know which holes go to which area on the hub, so we can figure that out pretty easily. But there's nothing to set this, so you need to find that index, and that's what they're showing us here, sort of on the first couple little diagrams here. That's showing you how you find that relationship, right? So we know that the reference on the rim is always the valve stem, so we know where that is. So they're telling us just to use these two spokes to clock the hub properly. So all we go is 5. Again, there's 4 layers of spokes, so it's a repeating 4-hole pattern. So every 4th spoke is always going to be the same. Like that's all these spokes here are always 4 holes apart. There's always 3 empty holes between them, then your spoke, and so forth. And then the pattern just repeats. The next level will split the difference. It'll be 2 spokes over, and then you go the other way in that same plane. And then the top layer of spokes, the same thing until all the holes are done. So it's a it's a fixed pattern, and it's fairly straightforward in that regard. It's just finding this initially. So what we need to do there with this particular setup, let's see if I can do this without getting my head in the shot. It's fairly fiddly little work. I got to get in fairly close, but so right now the hub is loose. Actually, I'll get this started, and actually before that I'll show you what I did here. So I don't know if I talked about this or not, but the hubs are meant to be, there's 2 mil bolts that go through that thread into the hub, and that's how you hold them to the fork or the swing arm, whatever. I didn't like that, so I made axles that are 2 mil in diameter. So I don't have threaded holes in here. They're size bigger than, well, they're size for the nominal outside diameter of the bolt, so it won't work in here anymore. The way this jig was supposed to work is you drill a hole in the bottom and you use one of those holes to secure the hub to it. So obviously that won't work anymore because I've drilled these out. So I just took a 2 mil aluminum tubing. I threaded both ends. I cut it just slightly shorter than the hub. I threaded both ends. I threaded on one side, so this will slip on. And now I can just put a bolt through the top, and because I made it a little bit shorter, when I tighten it down, it'll clamp the hub in there. So there, if I tighten it down, now it's firm. I just back it off, I can turn it. So that's what I've done there. And really, I think this works better than the way they have it bolted from the bottom, because now I can adjust the hub, get it where I want it, tighten it down a lot easier from the top. So anyways, that's what I've done there. So following the directions in the in the instruction manual. I just need to find my number 1. So let's see if we can do this without totally being in the way. We'll see. I doubt it. So hopefully you can see that. You can see that there is, that's my reference point. That's the valve stem hole right there. So now I want to count over 5 holes. That's just to align the hub right now. So I go there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to start at that one there. Let's get a spoke. Right now I'm just going to get this in here. Sorry, I might get my head in the way. I want to get it in sort of where it's going to go. I'm just going to hold it with my thumb. So there's that one. You can see it's in the focus. It's in its hole. So this first row that we're doing, we're going to do are the very bottommost holes in the hub. So that's that. So then I take my second spoke. This is a bit precarious. I'm not exactly a fan of this process that they've come up with, but it works. I've already tested this. So now, according to the instructions, we go over to 2 more over because this is the next layer up. It is 2 holes over, like I say, with the 4-hole repeating pattern. And I go over to the next, to the left, on the inside of the hub, to the top holes there. And I just get it on there. And now, this is where it's a little precarious, but you should be able to figure it out. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. So then we can turn the hub until, you know, we develop or we establish that these spokes are even. Sorry, there we go. See if I turn the hub, you see how this, where the spokes cross over starts to offset. We just want that to be even. So essentially there's going to be a straight line between that hole, that cross, and perpendicular to the hub. So that sets the position of the hub. Hopefully this is all in focus and you get that. So that's, and you can feel it too, like I got my thumb over the 2 spokes here so I can feel them moving. Obviously one's getting longer than the other as I turn. So you can kind of feel when they even out. And obviously you can see when they're equal. So then you just tighten the hub down. Now the hub won't move. And now I can take these ones out. And so I've set the relationship of the hub to the wheel. So that's established. And now I can go and start putting all my spokes in. And so that's just a matter of, again, like I say, the bottom row first. If we look at the instructions, that's that row that we're going to do, the yellow spokes. They're just showing that test spoke in there to fit. They just left it on the diagram, but now it's just a matter of going around. So now start with the hole next to the valve stem, put that one in, and then just keep moving around, leaving 3 empty holes in between on the rim. And this is the bottommost row of holes on the hub. And then the next one will be the one we used for the references, and it's the exact same except they're the opposite angle. But the same plane on the bottom row of that, it's 2 holes over and the opposite direction. Go around, put all those in, there's 10 spokes on each level. And just repeat that again until they're all done. So yeah, that's the Cole's notes on spoking wire wheels. So that will just go in like that. So now usually what I've been doing on wheels like this, depending on how well they register into the inner hub, I might just leave them. I won't glue them. I'll just make sure they go in. Then I'll put the ferrule, or the spoke nipple really is what it is. Sorry, this is really hard to see without. Come on, focus please. I just slip that over, slip it in, and then I'm not set up to build these quite yet, but I just wanted to demo this. So there's the nipple, you can see it sticking out there. And then I just put a dab of CA glue that makes sure it both glues the spoke to the nipple and the nipple to the hub. So, and just keep going around. It's a little tedious, like I think I mentioned earlier, a little bit there, that I'll go around, I'll use CA to glue all these. I'll do these 10, and then I'll come back and put a bit of epoxy on them all. Then I'll cut them, then I'll do the next level, and then so on. There's 4 levels on this, 4 rows of spokes in this case. So it takes a little bit of time, but I find after I've fiddled around doing 10 spokes and glued them all, I want to take a little break and let that just all sit and set up. So it goes pretty good. So that's usually how I tackle these. So there is, yeah, the spoke building 101. It's not difficult, it's a little fiddly. These wheels are pretty big, so it's not that hard. Not too bad, but you just get them set. I usually have magnification for this, so I'm not wearing that right now, so it's a little tricky to see, but not too bad. So there's 2 spokes in. Yeah, and then the next one's just so you can visualize. This isn't the way I would do it, but so the next level, like I say, is a 2 spoke over pattern, so that would be there. It would be right there. Put that ferrule on, and that would be the bottom plane. That's the ones we're doing now because they're on the outside of the wheel, so it'd be the outside spokes. So there. They're not too bad to do, actually. So yeah, if that's what's holding you back from doing any of these with wire wheels, they're not bad to do at all. And Model Factory Hiro usually gives you a nice little jig, you know, to hold everything while you're doing it. So, you know, that's all you need. It's just to kind of understand, get your mind around it, understand setting up the hub, getting that relationship to the wheel, the hub to the wheel relationship set. Once that's set, it's just go around and keep building up the layers. So anyways, I hope you found that useful. I will finish lacing these wheels up and show you the final result here in a bit. For those wondering why I don't do a lot of video of me working on stuff, this is why. At least with this current camera setup. I do 95% of my work under magnification. So not only do I have reading glasses or prescription glasses that have a magnifier built into them, I think it's a one-time. I'm also using this loop, which is quite new to me. I've either been using this or, you know, some clip-on ones like this that go on my glasses, or similar headset designs, which I never liked. I don't I just can't get along with the ones that clip onto my glasses or that are Optivisor style. They give me a headache after a very short time of use, where I find this loop here, which has a light, I'll probably mess my exposure up, but this I can utilize for longer periods of time without causing any eye strain or headaches or anything like that. So this is what I've been using. So this is why, you know, it's obviously in the way. I guess I could recompose the shot so it's more of a third-person observer shot from sort of coming down this way, as if you were standing or sitting at the other side of the bench looking at the work. And I might try that for some montage work, but I think just for showing the work and whatnot, the top-down view is typically the easier to shoot and compose and the best. So anyways, let's get this out of the way and zoom in a little bit. You can see, well, zoom back out, you can see I got the wheels done. We'll look at those at the final segment, but right now I'm working on the chain, so I just thought I'd show you a quick little, not a demo, but to show you what it's all about, how this all works. Model Factory Hiro gives you these little jigs, which this one, it's got the pins on it. I can pull them off. So it's just basically a flat bar with a bunch of holes in it. It's not quite that simple. It's a little bit more than just holes in it. It's got the major diameter for the roller pins, and then the minor diameter for the pins that go through the chain links. So, and then all the pins, all the rollers are molded on here at a fixed spacing, so you don't clip these off. You just put this on the jig, it holds everything spaced and in order, and then you just start building up the chain links on them. So obviously you put the first row down first, the bottom row down first. It's fairly intuitive, and then the top links are offset one pin, and that's what creates a chain, right? So the only thing here is like what you have to do, because these are, the way this is designed, these are white metal, so they're quite soft, so you end up mushering over the pins to capture the links. So what I've been doing is just laying, you know, two bottoms, then the top link, and then mushrooming those pins to capture that one, and just doing them one at a time and just working my way down. And it goes fairly quickly. It's fairly easy to do. I guess the only caution that I'd have is that, like I say, do them one pin at a time. You know, so you got two pins to do, but do them one at a time, just so you can get a feel for how much pressure you need to apply, which isn't much, because you don't want to over collapse them, over mushroom them, because the part that's swedged over will fatigue and break off, and you don't want that, obviously. So, you know, end of the day, when you take this off, you don't want it to be too constrained, otherwise the chain will be bound up. So you want it to be still flexible, so it'll hang naturally, or you can make it look like it's hanging natural. So just a little bit of it. It's not hard to figure it out. It's just mild pressure and get them all to sort of collapse the same. I don't know if you can see from the side profile. How much they collapse. Like you see the pin on the very end has not been mushroomed over yet, because you need to leave that one open so you can connect the next length to it, but the one beside it is mushroomed over, so you can see it's half the length essentially when it's done. So yeah, that's all there is. And then once you get one side done, you just take it out of the jig, flip it over, which it doesn't register quite as well. It's another reason why you don't want to over flatten them, because then the ends become too big to fit back in the jig. But it's not going to register as positively in the jig for the second row, but it'll be good enough. Like the the part of the chain you've already formed holds it all in alignment, so it'll be fine. So anyways, that's it. I think to do this one, I've got all the top done. I got to flip it over and do the next one. This probably took me, I don't know, 5 minutes to go through and do this length. So you got to do 3.5 of these, my sub-assemblies, and then join them together. So it really doesn't take very long. What I'll probably do afterwards, when I get the chain all done, is I will metal prime it and then put a dull flat coat on it, just to knock off all the shininess. Because you got to cut, obviously, all the little screw connections off of the rollers, so they'll be quite shiny, so I don't want them to be shiny. So a little bit of dull coat will knock off that shininess. So anyways, that's it for the chain. I will carry on putting this together, and when I got everything done, I'll check in with the final thoughts on assembly, show you the wheels in a little bit more detail. I've also got to do the discs and the chain, the sprocket for the rear wheel. So I'm going to get the wheels done in 100% complete. So anyways, I will see you in a bit with the final results and closing remarks. Right, there we go. We got everything all done. Well, everything. Got the wheels and the chain done. So everything went together pretty good. I think I already checked in and showed you the finished wheel itself. I just got the tires mounted on, got the discs on, so I don't think I did any check-ins on prepping the discs or the sprockets or anything like that. So I just cleaned them up. I just made a little mandrel and I threw them in my lathe just to, give some wear and patina to the braking surfaces to make them look a little bit more realistic. What I do there, and to help straighten out. So I did that first. I get them cleaned up and I paint them. And then I put them back in the lathe and I just remove the paint from the braking surface. So it just gives it some more realistic wear. So the insides and the perimeter here is all painted, which I think looks more realistic. So anyways, that's what we've done there. So that's the front wheel, it's done. Rear wheel, same sort of deal. Just with the sprocket obviously on the one side, again painted, prepped. I gained through that in the lathe to just give it a machine surface to look more realistic. Disc, same thing on this disc as I did on the front. So yeah, I'm pleased with how they all turned out. They all look really good. The rims themselves, the wheels look really good. The spoke nipples are all nice and even. And they laced up really easily. Once you get the hang of the pattern, the jigs work really good. And yeah, this is the result. So one thing to note, like the way the jig works is it obviously sets where the hub is in relation to the wheel rim. So the front wheel is symmetric, so it's got the same offset both sides. The rear wheel is not, so it is important to make sure that you got, for the hub, you've got it the right way around in the jig. And it's not terribly clear on the instructions, but if you look close, you can see what they're getting at to make sure the side of the sprocket needs to be closer. It's inset, because then when you build it up with the sprocket and the sprocket carrier, it offsets it correctly so that it ends up being even. So anyways, that's just one thing that you got to pay attention to. Chain went together pretty good. I didn't really show it. I think I showed how the jig worked and everything, but hopefully that's focusing. But yeah, it worked out really well. The only thing I didn't like about it is, I don't know if I have the scraps here or not. I don't think so. Not handy. But if you recall, all the rollers are on on runners that came in this way onto the pins, onto the rollers. So it held them all great for assembly, and for, the way the jig worked, it works fantastic. And then you just come and cut them all off. Problem is, these are all set below the links, the side plates of the chain. So you end up with a little nub on each one of them. So getting this all cleaned up and getting rid of all those nubs was a considerable amount of work. It probably took twice as long cleaning everything up as it did building the chain. But other than that, it went together well. It was a little stiff, so I just worked the chain to make sure that I got it so it's, relatively free. It's not super free, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be. And then it took a bit of work to get it sort of stretched so that the pitch is correct for the sprockets, so that it would fit down over the teeth of the sprockets. So that took a bit of work to sort of get it more or less stretched out. It's still pretty tight. You got to kind of work it on, but it fits down. I don't know why it's not focusing. It fits down around the sprocket really nicely now, so that's good. So it all worked out. I guess the only real unknown here is if it's the right length or not. I built it to spec. And so hopefully it'll end up being the correct length with a bit of sag in it or whatever. But we'll see. If it's not, I guess the saving grace here is the drive sprocket end is all covered. You don't ever see that. So if it ends up being too short or too long, I'll just cut it and glue it to that sprocket. And you can take out a link and just don't bother joining it, just glue it, because this won't spin when it's done. So anyways, that will address that if we have that issue, but we'll see how it goes together. So anyways, there is that all done. The wheels and the chain ready to go once the rest of the bike is ready. So happy with the progress so far. So that kind of brings us back sort of in sync with the instructions. We've got, or I've got step 1 done, step 2 done, step 3 is now done, step 4 is done. So, and I've done all the pre-assembly, the dry assembly of pretty much the rest of the bike. So now it's just taking apart everything that I'd test fit and start doing the final prep and paint and assembly on it. So yeah, the next episode we'll go back to the frame. I think you recall I said I was going to do some welding on the frame. So yeah, that's what I'll be working on. That next episode is getting the frame all prepped, replicating all the welds on it, and same with the swing arm. Yeah, so it's probably just going to be the swing arm and the frame itself, none of the auxiliary components that are going to go on it, just the frame. Get it all prepped, do the welds, get it in final paint. So that'll be the next episode. So I hope you're looking forward to that, because I'm looking forward to getting that done. That'll be a big step in making this thing one step closer to getting finished. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little episode on the wheels and chain. That was an awful lot of parts. I think by far that was probably 3/4 of the actual parts count of this kit was these 3 pieces. Obviously just a whole lot of the same thing. But yeah, it's coming along. So I'm looking forward to the next one, and I hope you are too, and we will see you then. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.